Hey there, I am back with more Redstone to show off. This time it's just like I made some stuff to do basic arithmetic with different signal strengths and mostly comparator shenanigans. Just addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division are a bit more complicated, but we'll get there. Starting with subtraction, actually, that's pretty easily the most basic. It's just a function built into comparators. If I just like 9 minus 6, 3. All you have to do is flip on the little torch thing in the front, and that's subtract mode. It subtracts comparators. Second up, addition. It's a little more complicated, but if you write all this out algebraically, it works. Basically, just taking a max signal strength, subtracting one input, subtracting the other input, and then taking this whole result and subtracting it from another max signal strength. And if I just like poke around in here, take 4 minus 4 plus 3, that's 7 right there. All right, like I said, multiplication, division, a bit more involved, a bit more complicated. They're also active systems and not just like functioning passively, so you gotta actually push a button to make it work. These are my first versions where I'm just figuring out what I'm doing. I felt like they were too big, too clunky, too unclear. So I rebuilt them, color coded them, made them a bit smaller, made them cleaner, and blah blah blah, yada yada. Multiplication. Bit of a complex system. This here, to start, is just like a loop that holds signal strength, except I think that's supposed to be like that. Except it doesn't just hold signal strength, it also subtracts. Because whenever this gets pushed across, this comparator is able to see this input lectern you have, and it screws around with that. Now, on the other side here, we have another loop with the strip cherry wood, and that is a classic pulse extender design. Not what I'm using it here for, though. Instead, I am powering it for too short. That way it only gets to like up here, and then this input turns off, so it turns into a clock where this end is on when this end is off, and then the power comes along here, and then this end is on when this end is off. So it's just a clock that fires a number of times equal to the signal strength. Whenever this clock fires, it powers this piston for 4 ticks, and that's what makes this whole thing see this whole thing. And the whole goal of this repeated subtraction is actually repeated addition, because by default it starts out at the 15, then it gets pulled away so that this turns into like a closed loop system where nothing's going in. And then whatever the signal is going through here, that comes in and gets subtracted from a max. It's similar to what's going on over here. So like here, let's just, you've probably heard enough of me talking. As you can hopefully see, what just happened is this thing got pushed back and forth multiple times, and every time this thing got pushed over, like I said, it subtracts a bit from there, and we turn that subtraction into addition by doing the subtract thing over here. Again, similar to that. And then by the end, you have 5 times 2 for 10. If you count that up, that's 10. Uh, one major limitation is if I do try to do 5 times 4, because signal strengths are limited to a maximum of 15, you can't exactly do 5 times 4 and get an accurate result, or like 5 times 4 is just an example. If you try to do anything that would give you any more than 15, it will be inaccurate. But as a little proof of concept sort of thing, as a little redstone challenge I set for myself, it works pretty well. Now on to division. Division's it takes some cues from the multiplication, but it also does its own thing. Let's start with this. This should look slightly familiar. It is basically another repeated addition thing, like from over here. You know, you got your signal strength, it goes around, goes around, goes around. And right here is where it is subtracted. Right here is where it's subtracted again to turn it into addition. So we got repeated addition. Why do we need repeated addition for division? Well, basically it's just acting as a counter in this case. So I got my 1 signal strength coming through here. Whenever this amethyst is pushed over here, it'll subtract 1 from there, which is basically adding 1 over here. So with that counter, we can do this. Oh, what's a good way to explain what's going on here? So one way to think of this is as a counterpart to multiplication being repeated addition. We have a sort of repeated subtraction going on, where your first input comes through here and like initializes this little loop to that signal strength. And then, well, it's another little clock thing that pulses repeatedly. And then at some point after the first, like when the signal is over here or something, and this is turned off, this is turned off, this block gets pushed down so that all of a sudden we can start subtracting. And then every time it goes around here, you know, it pushes this thing across and counts up by 1. So we're basically just counting the number of times this is able to go around before being depleted by repeatedly subtracting this. So 14 divided by 2. You might be able to see that that was gradually decreasing, and every time it went around, it would push up and push this over. And we've got 7 right there. Now, another limitation of signal strength is it works in whole numbers. So with the system I made, if you try to do like 14 divided by 3 to get a fraction, it's just going to round up. So like 14 divided by 3, that is a little below 13, like 12 and 2/3. No, it would be 4 and 2/3. So because it's 4 and 2/3, it rounds up to 5. I don't really know what else to say here. Hopefully that all made sense somehow. Uh, Hopefully it's cool. Maybe you find some use for it. I don't have anything else to say, but thanks for watching to the end. As a little treat, you get to see this little monstrosity as a sneak peek. In any case, have a good day and have fun doing some redstone.